Welcome to the first episode of Teacher Talks by the Tub. This is indeed the tub of my bathroom. I am indeed sitting on the floor, and that is just because this seems like a good space to record. So, today I'm going to be talking about educational technology and looking at the question of, is it really beneficial for our students to be incorporating a lot of EdTech in our classes? Is it more harmful or more helpful? And I'm doing this series actually because I am taking an EdTech course right now through Western for my student teaching. But today I'm going to argue that for the most part, educational technology should be removed from schools. And if you want to hear a really amazing argument for why, I'm going to give you the bullet point version, but Sofia Winkleman just gave, I think a few days ago, an amazing speech at the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship 2025, and you can find it on YouTube, titled "Watch This, the Most Compelling Argument Against EdTech in Schools." So, if you want to look it up, she makes excellent points, and I'm going to give you the highlights. So, I've already made the point. I agree with Sofia Winkleman that technology actually does not need to be so integrated in our education systems and in our schools as it is, and that the effects of it are actually more harmful than they are helpful. Some points that she makes to set up her case are the overall negative effects from screen time and some dangerous trends that have been seen in recent years among youth. These are pretty serious. There have been huge increases in self-harm and suicide rates among youth. There have been a huge increase in eating disorders, and many sources are attributing social media as a contributing factor to those issues. 1/3 of children nowadays are short-sighted, which, if you don't know, on screens, blue light is shining forth into your eyeballs, and it is not good for your eyes. It's strenuous. They don't recommend that. I believe 12-year-olds. Go watch her video if you want to get the correct age. But children should not be having blue light streaming into their eyes for more than an hour or two max a day. But 8 to 18-year-olds are on average spending 7.5 hours per day on screens outside of school. So imagine a classroom. Typically, as in my classroom, we have a TV screen up that has a slideshow for students to be looking at. That still is blue light going into students' eyes. And if they're working on Chromebooks in Google Classroom, if they are using their phones, that's gonna add to that 7.5 hours a day, which is already 3 to 7.5 times as much as is healthy for their brains. So, just chew on that for a second. I think what is kind of scary to me as a current student teacher in a middle school, I think I'm seeing the effects that they're talking about in this speech and in many studies. They're talking about how this extensive screen time is impairing speech, is impairing cognitive development and emotional regulation. I don't think you have to look very far on the internet to find students freaking out about just about anything. And truth be told, the things that help students to learn to have patience, resilience, to think creatively is not giving them instant gratification, instant knowledge at the touch of their fingertips all of the time. It is giving them opportunities to explore information and giving that time in the real world, where there has to be investigation, there has to be effort. There's not just the option to always have something read to you or to see something visually, you have to kind of engage with your environment, or even with reading a book. It is tough to see that I think it was announced by the president or someone in the White House just recently that reading scores have been at an all-time low, and I personally believe that technology is a massive contributor to that. And if you don't know, it's been scientifically proven that you retain information better when you read it from a physical text rather than reading it on a screen. And you retain information better when you physically write down a note versus copying and pasting something. So there is a good point that just for learning content, students should be engaged more in pen and paper than in screens. Okay. Thinking for a second. I think the crazy thing is that some countries have already admitted that educational technology is hurting more than helping in schools, and that they need to make a change. Sweden actually has kicked technology out of their schools, saying that EdTech was a failed experiment. So I think the question for us, or for you, wherever you are, is what are we going to do about this? If it's been proven that technology is harming students' minds, their emotional development, more than it is helping because of the massive amounts of time that they are already exposed to it, we need to think about what regulation would look like and what is the best move for our students. And for me, I heartily agree with Sofia Winkleman that when we use technology in schools, it needs to be intentional, it needs to be monitored, and it needs to be in moderate use. Students do not need to add to their 7.5 hours a day outside of school. I feel like that should just be common knowledge. But there's a big push to keep EdTech in schools, to push the advancement, to increase AI learning because it's convenient, because it provides you data, because as a teacher, I know there are many, many benefits and convenient uses for technology. But if it's at the cost of our students' health and their learning and well-being, then I think we need to rethink what we're doing. I personally don't want a dystopian future of everyone learning in AI classrooms. Not saying that is what would happen, but I could see it. I think that humans need to be taught by humans, and that our kids need learning that is going to teach them creativity, that's going to teach them human connection, that is going to teach them how to think and not just be instantly gratified all the time. So, those are my thoughts on EdTech. Please check out Sofia Winkleman's video, especially if you think that EdTech is the most amazing thing in the world and that it belongs in all classes. I would challenge you to look at the other side. And if you want, you can leave a comment below and tell me why it does. But that is all for the point of EdTech. Every time I post one of these videos, I want to go over something I've learned or observed in from other educators, probably information that I find online. Funnily enough, that might change once I'm done with this class if I continue this YouTube series. But the second part that I want to do is talking about what my goals are for this week going into teaching. So right now, in light of what I've learned from the wonderful Sofia Winkleman, I just want to engage students in conversations around their use of technology, to observe and ask questions if some students do or do not have access to technology at home. How do they think that affects them? And possibly having some good engaging conversations about why maybe it's best to not spend so much time in screens and phones and tablets. Okay, those are my points. Thank you so much for listening, and that has been the first episode of Teacher Talks by the Tep.